Today's episode of Real Talk Christian Podcast is sponsored by the Christian Standard Bible. The goal of the CSB is to be faithful to the original languages without sacrificing clarity, all while maintaining both accuracy and readability. With the beautiful designs and multiple study Bible options, everyone from adults to teens and even children can find a CSB Bible that they enjoy. Learn more at csbible.com. Again, that's csbible.com.
Welcome to Real Talk Christian Podcast, where we drink coffee and have real conversations on faith, culture, and society. I'm your host, Chris Fuller, and today is a very special day. We are dropping a bonus episode. This is an episode that we did with the hosts of But What Does the Bible Say? That is Rodney Buse and Tim Parsons. Mark and I were on this episode for them with the live stream, and we had a lot of fun discussing what it's like to be a Christian podcaster and everything that's associated with that. So we hope you guys enjoy this bonus episode that we're dropping today. Don't forget to check us out on Thursday morning for our next episode. And as always, you can go to realtalkchristianpodcast.com and check out all the links there, all the different episodes, swag stuff, and all that. So hope you guys enjoy. Thanks.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to But What Does the Bible Say? I'm Rodney, and we are here again with our wonderful co-host, the wonderful Tim Parsons. Thank you for joining me again tonight, Tim. Here we are for your first live stream.
That's right. It's great to be here live.
And we have two outstanding guests with us. These guys are from Real Talk Christian Podcast. This is Chris Fuller and Mark Hyde. Gentlemen, welcome to the live stream. It's good to have you.
What's up, Rodney?
What's going on,
What's
guys?
up, Tim?
You can look whatever direction you want.
I apologize. I'm the reason we're late.
That's usually my job, but I'm at home, so it's easier.
Parenting a 10-year-old is no joke. Let me just put it that way.
Well, you're parenting a 10-year-old and how many others?
6 others on
seven total. Yeah. And everything came to a head, and I'm like, I can't leave my wife to do this now.
But let's be honest, really, it's Beth parenting 8 children. I mean, let's be honest.
I guess I'm number 8, guys.
So, guys, welcome to But What Does the Bible Say? And just so our viewers and listeners can get to know you guys a little bit, sure. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah, you lead the way, man.
All right, man.
You lead the way.
I'm Chris Fuller. I go on the podcast as Fuller. We've been podcasting together, Mark and I, since 2019. We've been friends since, I think, 2017.
About 17, yeah.
Yeah, so beyond that, I'm married to my beautiful wife, Janelle Fuller, and I've got 3 kids, Piper, Noel, and Shiloh, ages 5, 4, and 2.5.
And baby 4 is on the way.
No, that's correct, sir.
No announcements.
No announcements. Sorry, it was too easy. It was too easy.
So, besides podcasting, I work at a steel mill. I'm a mechanic at a steel mill, and I just live day by day. So that's me.
You live day by day.
Day by day, man.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm Mark. I am the younger, better looking of the RTC hosts, if I can't say myself.
True.
So I'm married to my wife, Beth, which Rodney and Tim, I know you guys know this. Your listeners might not. We interviewed Beth back on episode 39 of this podcast.
You have that memorized, don't you?
I do. Well, she reminds me every time. She goes, hey, okay, so let's just be honest. As podcasters, I guess we'll lean to this a little bit. I know you guys care about your stats too. We all look at them.
By the way, guys.
Yes.
There you go. From Beth
hi,
Hyde.
Hey.
Hi, honey.
That's hilarious. Hi, dear. But so we're obsessed with our podcast stats, right? And we all are. That's right. A guilt, like a confession, I guess, already. But she's also obsessed with her episode stats. So
she's very obsessed.
She's always here. She goes, "Where am I at? Where am I? Am I in the top 10 still?"
Well, the singles episode's still number 4.
Her singles episode, when we talk about singles, is out there. But either way, so we interviewed Beth on episode 39 because she adopted 5 little girls. I always have to make sure I say she did not adopt them out of foster care. She went into foster care to foster, and then they all ended up being long-term placements and then ended up adopting them. So we interviewed her for that conversation, and we never stopped talking, and now we're married, and between us, we have 7 kids, and a 10-year-old going on 16-year-old with all the fun attitude to go with it.
Wow.
So if you're listening too, hi, Ava. But yeah, so I got 7 kids. I got Ava, she's 10, Sadie, she's 8, Elliot is 6, Nora is 4, about to be 5. She's going to be 5 in like a week or two.
There you go.
And then I have 3 3-year-olds. Hi, Dad. Oh, Mia. What's up, Mia? So then I have 3 3-year-olds. I have Mia, who's the one who just said hi. She turned 3 back in July. She will turn 4 in July.
Right.
Evie will turn 4 in November. Lucy will turn 4 in December.
Right.
So it's a wild house, and I work from home, which makes it even more crazy. But yeah, full time, I am a website developer, graphic designer, all that kind of fun stuff. And I host another podcast called the Small Church Media Podcast. So we're plenty busy, man.
Oh yeah,
Man.
We're plenty busy.
I mean, I'll tell you, it's interesting because whenever you see somebody who has a family vehicle that has a backup beeper.
yeah. His family van is just ridiculous.
It's a 15 passenger extended trunk, extended roof. So like Fuller can stand up in it.
It's great.
And so we cannot go through drive-thrus because our van's too tall.
Wow.
Let's just put it that way.
But the good thing is that the Fuller family can carpool if we need to, so we're good.
Right?
We're gonna take that sucker down to Knoxville here in a few weeks.
Yep.
So
there you go.
It's 2 weeks, I think. Right?
2 weeks we'll be down there in Knoxville for a wedding for one of Beth's best friends back there. So yeah, man, we got the church bus, and it's wild. It's a party.
Yep.
Man, that's awesome.
So what is for our listeners, what is RTC really all about?
Well, so RTC, Real Talk Christian Podcast, kind of started off it was Mark and I meeting at Starbucks, just growing our friendship together and meeting for coffee and just having conversations. And we discovered.
And we would go for hours.
I mean, it would be like 4 or 5 hours.
It was great.
And we would just sit there and just talk all sorts of theology and just talk about scripture and about life. And we're like, man, there's so many people that don't have these conversations in church. Right. Like, wouldn't it be cool to have just record these and then send them out to people? And that's kind of where it started. Then we got to thinking and talking about it more. We're like, we should start a podcast. And so we met at Starbucks and kind of came up with the name and a design. And we're like, all right, what's the first episode? We're like, well, how about does our past affect our future? And we had it all set to go. And then Mark, my life
exploded,
fell apart all of a sudden.
And I will say this too, because both you and I, we always thought blogging would be cool,
right?
And we both like, blogging would be awesome, but we can't write. We can talk, so let's just talk.
Right.
Maybe someone out there will listen, but yeah, we were all set, ready to go. And in fact, kind of like you guys, because remind me, Rodney. But what does the Bible say is part of the church's ministry for you guys, right?
Yes, yeah. Actually, when we first started out, but what does the Bible say actually was a product after we started these little videos that I called 60-second splashes at the water's edge. They were little 60-second. Yeah. And the problem is that I started covering topics that you cannot cover in 60 seconds.
Yep.
He's definitely an auctioneer a lot. A lot of the
we
time.
understand that. Our episode started off, we were like, hey, 15 minutes, man, 30 would be great, but we don't think we could talk 30 minutes. And now we run on average
at least an hour
and 15 minute longs. And we're like, oh, well, I guess we got to land the plane here because we're rambling on.
But with that, RTC was kind of supposed to be kind of like what you guys, now it was never supposed to be short form, but it was supposed to be a teaching arm of our church that we were members at, and I was a pastor at.
And our church is like, nah, we're not interested. So we're like, all right, we'll do it ourselves. So we funded it ourselves and slowly grew with our equipment. And, we're into the video now. And it's just kind of slowly growing. We thought we're like, oh, we'll be happy if we got 10 listeners. And now we just crossed over 105,000 downloads. So
I think we passed even that mark now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we're over 106 or 107 now. But and daily conversations. I mean, I spent most of the day today just talking with people that had questions about, predestination and just all sorts of theology. We're just constantly having conversations with people now from all over the world. I mean, we're worldwide. So
which is really cool. And so we had that joke about I know you guys do this as well, but we always ask our people to do reviews on Apple Podcasts. And we made some jokes like, only someone listening in India, because our stats tell us. We're like, yeah, probably not. That person left us a review, and they're like, no. I live in India. I work for the U.S. consulate office. So yeah, you guys are worldwide. So it's really cool. So the fact that we started a podcast that was supposed to be just another teaching arm of the church, And, I talk about a little bit. I was just interviewed on a different podcast about my story about just what happened with my situation with my wife having an affair and everything exploded. We were supposed to launch it. Everything blew up. And then, but pretty soon after a lot of the stuff happened, we were like, you know what? We just need to do it. And to be honest with you, I've talked about this in other episodes. That's what kind of helped me get through a lot of that is they always say the accountability in theory is great, but it never works because you never actually meet with people. Whereas for Fuller, literally, I mean, I'm meeting with my accountability partner every single week to record podcast episodes. So there would be episodes where before we would record, after we record, I'd be in tears. I'd be ticked off. I would be mad. We'd be talking. He would have issues. I would have issues.
It's been like that for years.
So it's really been like a life on life, the way discipleship and how the Christian world is supposed to work. So when people ask all the time, how did you get through COVID? I'm like, I had a Fuller.
Yeah. We still met all the way through COVID. So,
So real quick, you guys are from where again?
South Bend, Indiana.
Go Irish.
South Bend, Indiana.
Yes.
Well, I brought something tonight.
We're okay with Hoosiers.
We're all right
okay with Hoosiers.
That's all right.
As long as it's not
That's right.
If it was Ohio State, I would have been offended.
Yeah,
we were gonna say, you put on like a
No Buckeye.
Now, if you notice, Tim over there is wearing a Pike County T-shirt.
That's the other side of the
down all the way down south Indiana.
That's where,
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know that area.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like Jasper's usually like the most common one that people would recognize if they didn't recognize Evansville. I mean, Evansville's the big one.
We know Evansville.
Yeah, everybody knows Evansville, but that one, Jasper's a little closer.
Yeah,
gotcha.
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah. If you ever see the Jasper engine signs, that's that Jasper.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I trust you, Tim. I trust you.
I got a transmission one time. I was like, oh, hey, look. I didn't know they were everywhere.
Yeah, right.
So I do have another question. What coffee are you guys drinking tonight?
Well, good.
First of all,
this is our show, man.
I don't know. Rodney, did you enter to see the new cup here that we got here, the 100,000 download specialty cup that we're going to give away to a listener?
It's cute.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's special.
It is.
But in that cup, we are drinking La Colomba, Louisiana,
La Colomba
is
La Colomba is one of our favorites.
So if you've ever gotten on like Discovery Plus or like the Discovery Channel or something like that, there's a show called what is it called?
I don't know. This is your coffee.
Undergrounds or something like that, and it's all about coffee from this guy Todd Carmichael, and his company is La Colomba, and he goes all over the world and handpicks these beans for his coffee shops.
Okay,
and so this is that's how I found out about him, and this is one of his nice dark roasts. It's a crafted specialty bean from Brazil, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Rwanda. And it's kind of mixed together, and so the cupping notes are like a full body, chocolatey, roasty, velvety type of cupping notes. Really, really good.
Yeah. Now I'm drinking.
Go ahead. I was going to say, we're normally sponsored by a coffee company, brew it forward coffeeco.com, but we're not drinking them right now. We're drinking a lot.
But you know what though? I've ordered from them and they are really good.
They're phenomenal.
Yes,
now, I will
really
say
good.
this, Rodney. They haven't really released it publicly yet, but they're going to be slowing down their releases here soon because the company owner, Jared and Marianne, they're in the process of moving.
Right.
And you can't really roast while you're moving. So,
but in the interim, you can always go to Rodney's favorite Fathom.
Yeah, we brought the cup. We brought the cup.
By the way,
I saw that. I want some so bad, but the shipping costs more than the coffee.
Yes, this is the Ethiopia Organic Natural Yuga Chef.
Yes.
So that is one of my absolute favorites.
But that's what you sent us, and that was phenomenal.
Yes. So
how's it taste tonight, Rodney and Tim?
I don't know what Tim's drinking. What are you drinking?
Tim, you're at home. You're not in the studio.
I know, right? I'm way behind here. I'm slacking off. I was going to put a Cracker Barrel in the Keurig.
Oh no, Tim, we can't do that. I
got some Cracker Barrel K-Cups for Christmas. I
gotta send Tim. I gotta send you some coffee. We can't allow
right
that.
now. I've got agua.
Aqua. Oh, that's good.
That's some good H2O. No, that's some quality H2O right there.
That's right.
Here you go. This is from Fran Marie. Hubby and I are going to try Turkish tomorrow for the first time.
So
I've never done Turkish.
The key is it's 1 cup or 1 tablespoon of Turkish coffee and 1 tablespoon of sugar, and you have to get the creme right because I do this all the time here at my house. So I have a Turkish
This is new
coffee maker,
information.
and it is, if you make it right, it's phenomenal. Turkish coffee is phenomenal, and that's like one of the original ways to make coffee. So
Yes.
I think they'll enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because
Whoa.
I think we talked about this on your guys' podcast when I was on there about Turkish coffee and the requirements for getting married. In Turkey.
That was you. Yep.
Yeah, that women will make their coffee for the man they're going to marry, and he can actually reject her based on her coffee performance.
Well, I love my wife, but she was drinking Folgers when I met her.
So I made my wife Turkish coffee, and she said she doesn't like it. So I don't know what that means for me.
I guess you can't get married, Fuller.
Not in Turkey, anyway.
Yeah, right. Not Turkey.
Oh, goodness, man.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so that's
All
a
right.
big part of our show, 'cause I know you guys do that too, but we always talk about what coffee we're drinking, you know?
Right.
Because coffee
Yes.
and conversation,
Yeah.
that's where the podcast started, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Did you start out with Starbucks coffee brewing at home?
We did. We started out, we were drinking
Yeah.
like Caribou and Starbucks, and then
Uh-huh.
Well, I had a barista friend, so I got free coffee every month.
yeah, and then I was introduced from a guy at work that taught me how to roast my own coffee and what good coffee was.
And then
And
now
now
stop drinking.
I can't
Starbucks.
stand this. I can't stand the taste of Starbucks or like K-cups or folders or any of that anymore.
Don't you mean Charbucks?
Starbucks, yes, sir. You got it.
Now there's a little something to know about that, and that is they do it for consistency purposes.
Sure.
So
yeah.
that way, when you buy a latte in Indiana versus you buy one in Virginia Beach, it's going to taste the exact same.
Yeah, crummy.
Yep.
I love their frou-frou drinks, so I can't say nothing.
Yeah, if you add enough sugar, they're not bad. You
The
know.
vanilla bean frappuccino with a shot of espresso.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now see, I just got turned on
I'm not judging.
to a tea drink, which is a chai latte, right? But it's called a dirty chai latte because they drop a shot of espresso in it.
Right.
And man, that changes everything.
I'm not a chai tea guy, but there's a coffee
Yeah.
shop locally that's known for their dirty chais.
Mhm.
Chicory
Right.
Cafe.
Yep. Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So
Tim, your world's about to be
Man, yeah.
exploded on, man.
Tim's like, I think I'm out of my depth here a little bit.
A little bit.
My Cracker Barrel K-cups.
That's right.
all right. So now you know what? I was going to ask you, Fuller, if you had a fun fact right now, but should we wait until the very end?
Hey, it's your show.
We gotta wait.
It's your show.
Okay, Mark just called it.
We gotta
He said
wait.
we gotta wait.
All right,
We
we'll
gotta
wait.
wait.
Always the end of the show.
I do have one though. I do
Okay.
have one.
Okay, now,
Right.
yeah. So our viewers and listeners know, if you go over to RTC and you start listening to their episodes, they end every single episode with a fun fact. So I'm just saying, we got to end this one with that.
Yeah.
All right. So-
Fun story that actually started on our first episode, and it was sprung on me out of nowhere. Mark's like, "Hey, Fuller, you got like a fun thing to say or fun fact or
We
something
didn't
like
know
that?"
what we
And
were
I'm
doing.
like, "Yeah, I actually do." I just thought one up off the top of my head.
I didn't know how to land the plane, so I was like, Fuller. I mean, you're full of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you're full of something. And I'm like, this gives a fun fact, and you did.
Yeah. Amazingly.
All right. So what I'm going to do is to go ahead and get into the discussion. What we're going to be talking about tonight is a little bit of the life of what it's like being a Christian podcaster and kind of some of the things that we maybe didn't realize about podcasting until we get into it. And some of the things that you don't really get to see on like Think Media and stuff like that about what you deal with as podcasters. Because a lot of times they like to push the positive, but sometimes there's some negative sides to it. And sometimes we get some habits or bad habits that we need to talk about, especially for us as Christians. So before we get started, I do want to start off with Romans 15:5-6, which states, "May the God of endurance and encouragement grant you to live in such harmony with one another in accord with Christ Jesus, that together you may with one voice glorify God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ." And I want to bring that up because I think sometimes as podcasters, people can have a tendency to get in competition with each other. But for us as Christian podcasters, one of the things that I think we've done very well with you guys is that we are co-laborers.
Yeah.
And so that we are absolutely on the same side of the war, if you would call it that, to win people to Christ. So
Amen.
Now, we're terrible at responding to you, but we're on the same side.
we support you.
But I just think that's something that I think some people sometimes miss as far as being Christian podcasters that our brothers and sisters in Christ who are also podcasters are not competitive. We're co-laborers, not competitors.
Yeah, definitely. So. Well, and I think to add on to that, some podcasts, like we did an interview on Dudes and Dads podcast, and they have a different flavor, I guess would be the best way to describe it, than what we do. And you guys have a similar flavor to us, but it's somewhat different. And so, not everybody that listens to us is going to like Dudes and Dads, and not everybody that listens to you guys is going to like us. And that's where we come together as brothers and sisters in Christ in the podcast community. And we can say, hey, listen, you may not like me, but you guys should check out Rodney Buse and Tim Parsons over here on But What Does the Bible Say, and listen to them, because I think you guys will like them a lot better than you'll like me, and vice versa. And so I think that's where we as Christians, in the world's podcast, it is very competitive, and it is a temptation to happen in the Christian community. And I think it's great being able to have some guys like you that we can just kind of work together with.
And we met you guys because of podcasting,
right?
I don't remember how it happened. If Rodney, you found us, or if Tim, you found us, but we got connected on Instagram, I think. And then all of a sudden we started interacting more, and all of a sudden we're like,
I sent you coffee.
You sent us coffee, and that was it.
And these coffee cups, the Fathom coffee cups.
And I use it I don't use it every day, but I use it weekly.
See,
I use it weekly. But and that's the thing. It's like, there's so many friends of mine that are out there that they're good friends of mine. They're some of my closest friends. Most of my closer friends they're either our pastors or used to be pastors. And they're like, you know what, Mark, I love the show. I love what you're doing, but it's just not for me, because the topics that you guys are talking about are ones that I could sit and talk with you about, but I don't want to listen to that because I'm trying to listen to other things. But it's been so cool just to, literally, like as I was pulling into your driveway, we got another message.
I know.
A day does not go by where we don't get a message from somebody. Right. And we have the phone number that we called a guest on before, or not guest, we called a listener.
And they were like, wait, what? You actually called me? And we're like, yeah,
you said call.
You said call you anytime. So we did.
And so, but we get text messages and tons of DMs and emails of just people who, generally it's people who are like, you know what? I started following Jesus. I walked away. I'm back, and I'm just trying to figure out what to do. Or a lot of people who are like, you know what? I did the quote unquote Christian thing, the American Christian thing, went to youth group, went to church, whatever. But all of a sudden I'm sitting here going, I need to get serious with my faith. And then I found you guys. And surprisingly, we've been finding a lot of really cool community with high schoolers and college kids as well. Kids are just finding us because right now, especially coming out of COVID, we were able to just ride that COVID wave really, really, really hard. And we hustled and we grinded it out and we were consistent. And I think that's what has paid off for us, is the consistency, where when someone finds us, they often find us on Spotify, not through Instagram or Facebook or whatever.
Right. And
then all of a sudden we'll get messages and they're like, oh yeah, I found you last month and I'm already in episode like 40. And we're like, dude, that's 40 hours of us talking.
That's a lot of hours.
Why? And so, with the whole conversation around, there's so much, competitive nature in podcasts. And I always joke with people all the time, there's always more and more seat at the table. There's always more room at the table. And, there's a lot of people who really enjoy what Fuller and I do, but we've also got messages where they're like, we hate the banter. Can you just get right into the
we just recently got one of those comments on YouTube about kill the banter. And I'm like,
well, so we joke around. We're like the Kelly and Ryan of a Christian podcast.
I'm obviously Kelly.
We're gonna banter back and forth for 20 minutes, and then we're gonna be like, hey, we should probably start the show.
But so many people love it because at the end of the day, like I'm trying to teach a lot of churches to do this right now on my other podcast. Of the biggest thing that brands, like we're brands, our brand's RTC, your guys' brand is what. But what does the Bible say? Is how can we humanize the brands? Right. So by people getting to hang out, we do would you rather questions, this or that questions, questions in a box, party cues, where we want people just to know us, because if they want to listen and trust us, they have to know us first.
And that's what it's about. It's about building trust with your listeners.
Yep.
So
and humanizing it, the whole thing.
Yep. Now, what are some of the biggest questions you get from people as far as podcasting?
In terms of how to start, or
about how to start.
So a lot of people, we get a lot of questions about, hey, what equipment do you guys use? And,
that's a standard one.
What's your platform what platform do you guys recommend? Is it Buzzsprout? Is it, this, that, or is it Podbean? Is it whoever it may be? Who do you guys use as a platform? And I think and then the other one I guess is how do you grow as a podcast? And we're like, we have no idea. We just do it. We just keep showing up, and people keep showing up. I don't know what to tell you.
Now, I will say is we've done a lot of things right, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is. And I have a client in Salt Lake City who's trying to grow her podcast, and I'm like, well, a lot of people don't get is there's no reward for podcasting for a long time.
Right.
And there was a while where Fuller and I were like, is anyone even on the other end of the we're talking to a microphone, but is anybody else there?
Well, we've been doing it for 2.5 years now.
Yeah.
So, and we're just now like, 100,000. We're like, yay. And like 2.5 years to get here. And some people are like, I've been doing it for 3 months and I got over 1 million listeners. And it's like, wait, what?
But and you guys know this specifically is if you're growing a grassroots podcast, it starts with just the people, but it's consistency. It's the same if you're blogging. It's the same if you're exercising, working out, whatever. Consistency is key. So for us, we've been doing it for 2.5 years, and we've never missed a week unless we intentionally said we're going to be gone for 3 weeks.
We're taking we're ending this season and starting this season. There's going to be a 3-week period where we're not putting anything out, or we go, hey, we've run into situations and we're really busy, so we're going to do rewind. And we did 2 weeks, 3 weeks of rewinds,
and one of those is one of our most downloaded episodes right now. Like it's unreal.
Yeah.
And so when a lot of people get started, they always go, okay, so what microphone, what gear, which and how much money is it actually going to cost me to start a podcast?
And I want to say, when
we first got started,
we were probably like $300-400 into it to start.
But we already had a computer, and so we had some
so we brought a lot of our own stuff to it.
But we had to buy the mics and the stands and a soundboard. Facebook Marketplace is a glorious place to find stuff.
Well, we didn't have a camera at the time, and over time we slowly we upgraded our cords, we upgraded our mic stands, we got a camera set up now, which is actually yours. So we're getting ready to purchase a podcast camera strictly for the podcast. So we're still every day we're trying to, how can we improve the show and improve the listening quality for our listeners.
Right.
And I do want to say, so many people when they start podcasting, let's be honest, every white dude in their 20s started a podcast over COVID. But so many of them die in like 3 weeks because it's like, you guys know it. You guys both work full-time jobs and we have full-time jobs. Like this week, I just want to go to bed right now because I'm tired.
Well, we missed the past 2 weeks because I had COVID for the third time. I went to the hospital. I was in the hospital last week. And so, things happen and, working full-time, and it's just, how can we figure out ways to stay consistent and everything? So,
and that's just to let you know, our community group is out there praying for you. So
thanks. I appreciate it. I feel a lot better. I feel almost back to normal now. So
I should have worn a mask tonight.
Yeah, I tested negative. I'm not.
I trust you.
But yeah, so I think for us, it was interesting because I started it alone, right? Really. I also do produce one called Coffee Time Q&A at the Water's Edge for our church, which is our pastor and our associate pastor who discuss that with also the deacon of worship.
He's funny.
And, yeah.
Not he, but like the podcast and stuff. Like they got their humor is funny.
So we, I was doing that and doing this, and I was doing it by myself for a while. And I was like, man, I did not like talking to this singular eyeball all by myself.
Yeah.
And so I had to find a really awesome co-host.
Right. Yeah. I like what they said earlier, right? Better looking for the ratings, right?
We like them too, Rodney. We like them too. You should keep them.
Well, no. What's that nickname you always get called, Tim?
I thought Rodney
WTP.
Opened with that. That's right.
That was it?
The WTP, the wonderful Tim Parsons.
The wonderful Tim.
Right.
I know it's something.
Just to keep me humble. That's right.
The wonderful Tim Parsons. Which you've even done some shows by yourself too, right, Tim?
It's just a couple, not too much. But like he said, it's
difficult.
It's a lot different than you'd expect.
Yeah.
So maybe that's another point. Really, is that solo ones, you got to do a lot more prep, a lot more.
Yeah, you got to fill in all the empty space too. Like right now, if I run out of things to say, I've got him or I've got you guys right now. So it's like, oh, this is perfect. There's not a whole lot of dead time.
And I'm on the side where I run a podcast by myself and also with co-hosts. It's a lot more fun. And this is where I think why we've been able to have such a long run of what we had is we're best friends.
Right.
And we intentionally have an excuse to hang out with each other for like 5 hours on a Friday.
It's great.
Hey guys, by the way, look at this. Look at this real quick. This is my wife. The community group has you on the big screen, and we're praying for you.
To add 10 pounds, I started going to the gym this past week, so I'm trying to burn them off.
Right. I don't need any help.
Oh, yeah. But going back to just how to start the podcast, I think the biggest thing that helped us is we were already best friends. We already knew how to talk. We knew how to talk with each other, but even though you're a blue collar worker, most people don't realize your background in theater and worship and performance arts and all these different things. So there's also something to be said about personalities that go and do it as well. Like there's some podcasts that I listen to, but some people find very, very boring just because of the content is amazing, but the presenter is just
very dry.
It's dry.
Yeah.
And that's what we want it to be, is like, that's why we intentionally brought coffee into the show. That's why we intentionally did what we did, where it's more of, this is just two dudes having a conversation. And some episodes, as you guys know, are more teaching based, where Fuller will tell me before we start, just don't interrupt me. Let me get through the notes. Or I'll say, hey, let's get through the notes and then we'll have a conversation.
Right.
But a lot of times, like, we're just hashing stuff out. And so that's why a co-host is really cool, because we're able to do that. So if you're just starting off on a podcast, do it by yourself, because I mean, obviously, you got to get you got to start somewhere.
Well, and
but having a co-host is so much more fun.
My little bit of advice for anybody that is thinking about starting a podcast is the first few episodes are going to probably suck. They just are. And with experience and doing it more and more and more, it becomes routine and you get better at it. I go back and every once in a while listen to the first couple episodes that Mark and I had, and it was just like, it was rough. It was like intro music right into, hey, so today we're going to talk about is Disney causing our kids to walk away? And they're like, and it was just like, bam, and like just smacked you in the face. And it was just like, wait, this is like really dry, and just like, I'm presenting this in front of the class. And that's not what we wanted. We wanted to have a podcast that was real conversations with real people, and we wanted to continue the conversations, and we wanted to become approachable for our listeners. So,
Now, I want to ask you guys, if you don't mind just asking a question, because we started off as an audio only podcast who then added video. So even though we have video is not our primary focus. So we actually intentionally, we have videos where people can watch and tune in, because, YouTube is the second largest search engine in the planet. So we wanted to be there. But you guys are a YouTube first podcast. Like, does that change the game a little bit?
Yeah, it does. Because sometimes I think here's what I find interesting about having YouTube and of the podcast. Episodes that we have that do really well on YouTube don't do as well to the pod and on the podcast side. But the episodes that do really well on the podcast side don't do as well on YouTube. It's interesting to watch those, to see that change. I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe some people think that different episodes are better to watch than to just listen to. But
you guys also have good thumbnails.
Yeah, you guys are way better at the production side of videos. We're like, hey, we got something to record.
As long as it's up there, man, we good.
It looks crisp, and that's all we want. We tried it in our earliest days of video. We had 3 different cameras, webcams, and it was cycling through, and it was just like, man, this is really choppy. And like, that's when we're like, we're just going to go to one camera, single focus, and leave it.
And our audio sync still isn't perfect. Like, it's still off by a little bit, but we live by the Gitmo phrase. Good enough to move on.
Yep.
That's true. It is true. Here we go. We got this one that says, I prefer podcasts that doesn't sweet talk. Talking about sensitive subjects challenge people to think, to pick up the Bible and read and learn and do research.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
it, man.
We just had this past week. Yesterday dropped our newest episode.
Yesterday, yeah.
What about the people that never hear the gospel?
Oh no, that was the week before.
Was that 2 weeks ago?
Thursday was gluttony.
Gluttony, that's right. So, which was actually a good conversation. But
that was really
last week.
Fun.
So last week was that one, and we had missing books of the Bible, and we've had these harder topics, and we actually try to let our listeners dictate what they are having questions about if we can. Hey, what do you guys, you got a question every time a listener reaches out to us? We ask them, how'd you find us? And do you have any questions that you've never been able to get answers on?
And sometimes we answer them right there in the chat.
Sure. But that's what we're looking at, to try to answer the questions that aren't talked about in those real hard conversations, but do it in such a loving way. The soft answer turns away wrath. And so we want to do it and present ourselves not in a sweet talk way, but in a way that is loving,
Right.
but still deals with that harder thing. And I think that is so important for us as Christian podcasters, because we can't have that one-on-one relationship most of the time with our listeners, that if we just come out harsh, I think of John MacArthur sometimes, and when listening to his sermons are great, but sometimes it comes off really harsh. It's like,
or like James White, James White has like
and
zero grace.
Sometimes it's like, oh man, that's great, and sometimes it's like, all I could think about is how harsh he was when he said that. Like, man, that's kind of harsh.
And we're not perfect. Like, there's some episodes where it's like, and some of it, people don't always know our relationship either. Like we had an issue in our small group, like coming off the screen into our small group, where everyone thought that Fuller was attacking me about something. Yeah. And at the end now, did I feel attacked? Well, yeah, of course I did. But, at the end of the day, like everyone felt more uncomfortable for me than I felt. Because after I knew I was such best friends with Fuller, where no one else knew where he was coming from except me. And so there's some times where people might hear what we have to say and they might, oh, that might have been a little harsh, or that didn't come out the way it's supposed to. So, and we're humans and we mess up.
And it's even happened on the show. And we have a strict rule of 0 editing. We do not edit. Yep. The way we present it is the way it is. And so we had a moment, and I don't remember which podcast it was, but Mark was trying to get a thought across, and I kept interrupting because it was getting heated. And Mark goes, pause, which told me you've crossed the line. You've gone too far. Shut up. And I'm like, oh, and then like, I've gone back and watched it. I'm like, man, I feel so embarrassed that I did that. But it was a real conversation that happened with two real Christians, and it got heated and it got passionate, and it's okay. It happens at times. So,
and we're still friends
and we still love each other.
But, going back to what I think it was Ezra who made that comment. Yes. Early on in the show, our good buddy, Pastor Brandon Soche, I don't remember what conversation it was, but, I was just sitting with him in my office one day and he goes, you know what, Mark, I really like the show, but you guys talk about the Bible, but you don't always bring a lot of Bible into the conversation. Yeah. Like that was early on. And from there on out, Fuller and I, we can have conversations about anything with there's literally 0 prep. We don't need a lot of prep to have these conversations because we're both avid. Well, he's an avid reader. I'm an avid listener. We're sucking in content all the time. But when Brandon said, you guys are a Christian podcast trying to teach people how to think, but you guys didn't bring the Bible into that conversation at all. And we went, oh boy.
Yeah. And so we've made it a point now to make sure that we bring scripture into every conversation that we have on our podcast.
And Rodney, you hear it sometimes we'll make the joke, but what does the Bible say about this? And we go, hi, Rodney. And then we move on.
All right. So I'm going to bring this comment. Okay. So by the way, Ezra is from the Netherlands. And I just wanted to let you guys know that, and sometimes this happens because I know that you guys may have dealt with this before, and I know I did. Matter of fact, it was just before Tim came on. It was an email that I got from Ezra, that actually kept me from quitting.
Really?
Okay, yes.
She's here tonight.
Yes, and she is on here tonight. So,
hi, Ezra.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes burnout does happen. Have you guys ever experienced that burnout?
So we have made from the very start a pretty big rule. We batch record, right? So twice a year we take like a month to a month and a half off. So we batch record so much that we have episodes in the bank, usually about 8 episodes, so enough for about 2 months so we can get back into it, or if something happens, we still have a couple in the bank that we can get back together and record. But we make sure we take some time off, usually the between Thanksgiving
and New Year's. We don't record at all.
We don't at all. And then once in the summer, usually in the beginning of July, to try to help negate some of that burnout. But there are times where it's like, man, I really don't feel like podcasting tonight. And you could tell those episodes, the episodes where Mark talks a lot are the nights that I didn't really feel like podcasting. And the nights I talk a lot, Mark really didn't feel like podcasting. And it's because life beat you down that night or that week, and you just had a rough week, and you didn't really feel like doing it. And I think that's where we play really well off of each other, that usually one of us is raring to go. And if we're not, then we have enough episodes in the bank. We're like, let's just sit and talk tonight.
which has happened before, actually. We've had a night where we didn't record at all because we were just talking about life.
Right.
But, the nice thing with our show, I will say this, I don't think we've ever really experienced burnout.
Not
the tried and true, like just we're done with this. We want to walk away. Then others be like, no, you can't leave me. Like, we have so much fun on the show, but there's questions. And I'll be honest, when Beth and I first got married, we're trying to figure this thing out. I'm like, man, I don't know how much longer I can go on this podcast because life is busy.
Yeah.
But the thing that keeps me going is the fact of, I met my wife on the podcast, so you better believe she's a huge supporter of this thing. My kids love it too, but we get so many emails where, people can hear my story. I just did it. It's a new agey podcast. I'm not going to lie, but I had the opportunity to share my story and I preached Jesus hard in that one. But in that whole conversation, it's like, I'm trying to think exactly where to go with where I was going with all of that. I completely lost my train of thought. But, going back to just with us and feeling that burnout and wanting to quit, it's the fact of, that's what it was. It's the fact of when I left ministry, I kind of was like, well, what am I now? Because I was always a pastor. That was my identity. And since we started the podcast, we have interacted with probably more unsaved people, more people who are questioning the faith, more doubters, more deconstructionists, more coming back to the faith, more people who found us through the hard times. They're having hard questions. We've been able to minister to more people on this podcast than I ever did as a youth pastor. And I love being a pastor. I love being a youth pastor. No questions at all. And those are, people who you're investing in their life, not just like a one-on-one interaction here, a little bit there, a little bit here. But, we interact with so many people. And like the message today, he's like, hey, I just found you guys and you are exactly what I need to hear. And, God's doing a really cool work through your ministry. So God bless. And it's like, why would we stop? Now, obviously, as life goes on and things change, I mean, who knows where the podcast is going to be? That's not a hint at anything. It's more of just, we don't know what life is going to go,
Right.
But for the foreseeable future, it's the fact of we have a really cool ministry that we're able to reach all over the world. We're growing ridiculously fast. We're starting to get podcast sponsorships where, we're able to start pouring more money into the gear and the tech. And even just, we want to use a lot of that money to just give people Bibles like crazy.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of really cool opportunities.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've talked about with the incoming income is just buying a big batch of Bibles and starting to send them out and pass them out to people. And that's what that's one of the goals we have as a podcast, not to ever take for ourselves, but everything that God gives us through the podcast, be able to give it back out. So.
Yeah. So what are some of the misconceptions that people have or that listeners have about podcasting that they may not realize goes on in the background with podcasting?
I don't think listeners understand the prep work because I know at first I didn't understand the prep work.
And that's why most podcasters quit.
I can come into a subject and be like, I mentioned it on the podcast that aired a couple weeks ago about what happens to those who don't hear the gospel. And I went into the research like, I don't really need to research this because I know what I believe and what the Bible says. And as I researched it, I even said it on the podcast. As I research this, I'm kind of questioning what I believe. So we're just going to flesh it out here on the podcast because I don't know. And by the end of the podcast, I was like, nope, this is exactly how I believe. But it's one of those things that, even sometimes in the research, the internet's a great thing, but it's the worst enemy too, because you're going to have on a subject, you're going to have 50% of people saying that it's this way and 50% of people saying it's this way, and they don't agree. And you have to kind of flesh out using scripture, and they both sometimes will use scripture.
Right. It's
but
the gray areas.
They're viewing it differently.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so I really got to dig deep here and pray about God, please lead me to what the truth is, because we take it very serious on our show. And we've said it many times. If we find out we're in error on our show, we will repent of it publicly to everybody, because we don't want to
halfway through the show on science once.
Yeah, we did.
Science, we're like, we're wrong.
Yeah, we're wrong.
Cool.
As we're reading the
Moving
scripture
on.
more, this is what the Bible's saying. So, it's one of those things that we take it seriously, and we never take what we say lightheartedly, that it's not like, oh, well, we can just say whatever we want and it has no meaning or bearing on anything. And I don't think listeners realize how much pressure, I guess, would be the best word.
Pressure is a good one.
It's a lot of pressure that it puts on us,
because we'll be judged one day on how we teach.
Right.
Know?
And
right.
we're
James 3:1.
Right. So we're looking at what is it? 14,000 downloads we have every month right now, about 14,000. So that's,
we just crossed over
14,000 people have listened, or we've had people listen to 14,000 episodes, whatever episode it may be in a month.
Yep.
And it's like, man, we're accountable for that. We are accountable for that. And so it's very, very heavy.
And coming out of that, not just the amount of prep work that goes into one episode, but from just what does the Bible say. But, we're bringing in sources and books and theologians. And I'm very big. I joke on the about page for our website of I'm more of an occult. Like I call myself a cultural theologian too, where I don't just study what does the Bible say in systematic theology. I go, okay, what is culture's entire interpretation of all of this? So what does culture say about this, and how does this play into culture? So we try to bring those conversations in, and then I was always taught that when you're preaching a sermon, you always got to put the pants on the sermon, because you'll walk out the door, with your hair a mess, maybe you don't have the right shirt on, but you will never walk out the door without pants on your body. So if you preach a sermon without putting pants on it, for what the application, that's what it is. The application, what's the point of even preaching?
Right.
And so we sometimes painstakingly go, what are we trying to communicate with this episode, where we'll sit on it for weeks or months, because we're like, we just don't know what to do with this yet. Like, we actually have episodes that are written that we're like, we're just not ready to talk about this yet.
Critical race theory is one of them. It's just like, we're not 100% prepared for being able to air that.
Which you guys had an episode on,
and it was amazing.
It's an hour and a half long.
It's an amazing episode too.
I haven't even listened to it yet.
Oh,
it's on my to listen to.
But
all right.
For us, it's one thing that we haven't tackled because of
a question.
So we do have a question here. How do you deal with the fact when you know for sure some people are misrepresenting the scriptures about certain topics?
We call it like it is.
We do. We had an episode, and it was one of our classic replays that's done really well, is the speaking the truth in love. The most important thing, I live by Galatians 6:1-3. It talks about if a brother's in error, you're supposed to lovingly, gently go and bring him back. I'm paraphrasing. This is like the Message version, but you're supposed to bring him back and be careful that you don't fall into the same temptation, right? And so for me, I know in the past I've misinterpreted scripture before, just based upon, my old pastor said this, and this is the way I've always read that scripture. And it's like, no, when you tie it into the context of scripture, that's not what it's saying at all. And it's one of those things that we have to deal with. We must deal with, but we must do it in a gentle and loving way. And sometimes it's very difficult, and sometimes you're beating your head up against the wall, because even though you're showing them the contextual process of where that scripture fits in, they don't see it still. And, we have to proclaim the truth, but it doesn't mean that they're going to accept the truth.
Right. But you also have to look and see where people are coming from too, where no one comes into the Bible without their lenses on, their preconceived understanding of how things work. And so, I hear a lot of people talking about, Jesus leaving the 99 to go after the one. Most people don't have a clue what that passage is actually talking about. Literally, it's Jesus going and getting his own, and it's talking about the Israelites, it's talking about Jews. And, so there's so many times where we have to see what people are bringing into the text. They'd be like, okay, so why are you understanding it this way? And generally speaking, when people interpret the Bible a certain way, there's normally a reason behind it. If people are like, oh, I want the Bible to say this, and you can make the Bible say literally whatever you want it to say.
Well, you're talking about the difference between eisegesis and exegesis.
Oh, 100%, exactly. 100%. Now, I think there are conversations around certain topics. Like currently, I always have my wife calls them mental gymnastics. I like to play mental gymnastics, and she doesn't like to play that with me. So she says, just talk to Chris about it. And so right now I'm wrestling with, okay, so and a buddy of mine's wrestling with this question too, of original sin, of not just what is it, but how is it passed on? Was Adam just our representative? Was it actually from, the seed of the man? That's sperm. Let's just be honest. And is that what causes sin nature? Is that really how it gets passed on? So that's how Jesus was, able to be, perfectly man, but also perfectly God. How does that work? So that's a conversation that I wrestle with. I'm reading all different sides, but I'm actually also wrestling with the fact of, can women be pastors in the church? That's a conversation that I personally have been reading about. And there's people who do good exegesis on both sides. And it's like, okay, so where do we come into that? And that's why we haven't had a conversation on that yet, because I'm like, I'm still working through it with the very, very finite, limited amount of time that I have. And so,
and you have to be careful, because you might think you're exegeting something and you're eisegesis something. So, that's where it's like, okay, am I really reading it in the context, or am I reading it through rose-colored lenses. You know?
I don't even know what you guys are saying. I'm speaking a foreign language.
Sorry, Tim.
Sorry, Tim.
Tim, stay after class.
That's right. That's right.
But that's the thing. But going back to the prep work is it takes us so much time.
Yeah.
Like, it takes us sometimes a couple hours to prep one episode for us just to scrap. Like the other week, like I wrote an episode, Fuller wrote an episode, and I'm like, oh, they're too similar. So I took out like an hour or two of my workday on Friday afternoon to quickly write an episode. Gangbusters it in here, which was the gluttony episode, which was really, really cool.
Yep.
But that's happened so many times. So, we'll put hours into prepping a show. And then on every Friday, we're here for a minimum 5 hours.
Oh, at least.
Recording.
At least.
And doing other things to set up. And then after that, we're having to, Rodney, you get it. You actually do the edits. We're lazy. We don't do that. But there's still
like to
social
save
media.
time.
We're engaging with our followers and this, that, and the other. And I mean, yes, you're a normal worker, but you work, insane hours,
right?
Some weeks. And for me, I
work swing shift.
Oh,
People that don't know what that means, it means 1 week I work days, the next week I work afternoons, the next week I work midnights.
And then, but if you have turnovers, you're gone all week.
And then if I'm on what we call downturns, I'm working 14 hours to 16 hours a day for an entire week.
And I own my own business, so I'm always working.
Yeah. Now, see, I relate more to Chris on this one because a lot of people know I work in a shipyard out here.
Yeah.
And so being that I work in a shipyard and our schedules are very similar to yours. Now, I am a permanent day shift guy right now.
Oh, that's
nice.
nice.
A little bit nicer.
It's because you're the old man on the crew, isn't it?
Yes, I'm actually the office lead. So
we call that seniority.
Yes.
Right.
I always love, I know, that's where our camera's at, but that's where I can see Tim. And Tim has just rolled so hard when I called you old. So I guess there's a joke there that Tim likes to call you old all the time.
Well, we've actually been, and I know this is getting off topic a little bit. We've been discussing who's actually older because, here's the thing, Mark. I know what your real first name is.
Yes,
Timothy. And so we have this little thing where we say who is First Timothy and who is Second Timothy.
I didn't know that. Are we going to settle it right now?
That's phenomenal.
Are we going to settle it?
So what year were you born, Mark?
December 1991.
Yeah. But I was born in 86.
So he's Second Timothy.
Yes. You get to be Second Timothy this time. I've always been Second Timothy.
Wow, you're the baby of the show.
I am the baby. All you guys can grow better beards than I can.
That's true.
But no, Tim, no.
I haven't shaved in a week.
Rodney
all I got.
hasn't either, don't worry.
Yeah, right.
Mine's just all white, so that's
You can't see it. Can't see it.
But just to continue on, what is one of the most controversial topics you've covered?
We've had a few. I mean, we've covered.
My favorite one was Would Jesus Smoke Pot?
That was one. The LGBTQ plus episode, transgenderism.
I would say the LGBTQ plus episode wasn't such as a struggle for us to talk about as the transgender conversation because early on in the show we did the LGBT conversation.
Yeah,
so we didn't really get into some of the we know who's listening to our show. It was more just let's just talk about it.
Well, I think that made it easier for us.
It made it easier
to know that hey, we don't know who's listening to the show, but now it's controversial.
We have a platform.
It's very controversial, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I would say the transgender one more than the LGBT conversation was actually a little bit more controversial.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm trying to think. There was probably another one in there somewhere.
The Enneagram. We did the Enneagram.
We did the Enneagram.
Yeah.
We did the Game of Thrones when it had ended, like the final season of Game of Thrones. We were like, well, let's bust out a Game of Thrones episode.
And actually, that got some people tied in really tight with us when they listened to it. Yeah.
We talked about COVID throughout all the beginning of COVID. We had an episode about what was it? What do we call it? How do we try to remember what it was? It was something about how we affect the world or something like that. And we got into it about COVID on that one too.
Yeah. I mean, we had a really good conversation with Andrew Wood back on episode 71.
Man, yeah,
I think of our how can we be pro-life after birth?
Yeah.
Because obviously Christians are not obviously because right. But I would say most evangelical Christians were like, yeah, abortion's wrong. Now there's conversations around what's, where's the line of when it's abortion versus, it's like literally one of like either the mom or the dad's going to die, or the mom or the baby. We have to do something. But, coming to that conversation of can we be pro-life after birth? And he pretty much took every single straw man argument, red herring, any type of fallacy you could think of, and literally just shot it out of the sky one by one. That wasn't controversial for us, but it was really cool for see him step into that gap.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say for us though, personally, I would probably two conversations. One is I'm very big into denominations and you're not.
Yeah.
And I'm also one where I'm not like I'm totally okay with churches who flat out say we're like, we're not for like we want to be a church that unsaved people love to attend. Like, I think those churches have a place.
And I'm very much the church is not for unsaved people. The church is for saved people, and the saved people go out and find the unsaved people.
So for conversations of what has caused us a lot of conflict, I would say those ones were very, very big conflicts.
Yeah, probably.
But a lot of the other ones weren't necessarily conflicts. They were just
that's a great point.
Out.
So
and
here's a question for Tim.
Older creationists, that's one too.
Here's a question for Tim. Tim, what do you think one of our most controversial episodes has been?
Controversial? We're not controversial at all. We're
deciding 1st and 2nd Timothy. That was
very, very controversial right now, right?
See, I mean, I kind of went back and looked through some of our episodes when I wrote this question down, and I think it was interesting to me. The ones that I didn't think were going to be as controversial.
Oh, right.
That were. You know what I'm saying? The ones that I was like, man, this isn't going to be that bad. But I think, well, the bourbon cigars in the Bible, of course.
Oh, yeah, right. Just I think you don't realize how many people are still wrestling with that sort of thing.
Yes. But I think one of the biggest ones.
You haven't seen that one? Oh, man, it was great.
Yeah. Well, I brought in a friend of mine who I rode motorcycles with, a guy that I rode with I rode with Bikers for Christ for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought in one of my brothers from there, and we discussed it because I knew he smoked cigars and he was a bourbon drinker. And I was like, I just want to know. Let's talk about it. And he's also Reformed theology. So I was like,
that's all you need to say. He's Reformed.
It's crazy how many Reformed theologians drink a lot of bourbon and smoke cigars.
I mean, most people don't want to admit that, Spurgeon said that he smokes a cigar to the glory of God after every sermon.
Yeah. Yeah, he did say that.
I'm a Jack and Coke guy myself, so I can't say much.
But yeah, I think that one. But the funny thing to me was the ones that I didn't think were that controversial. We did 2 different episodes on our review of shoot, what was it? Now see, now I'm losing my train of thought there, Mark.
You're the old guy.
But on the our final thoughts on the rise and fall of Mars Hill. That one, when I
haven't finished that one.
So when I saw the differences, I think we just lost Tim.
Bye, Tim.
Bye, Tim.
But one of the things was when I saw the percentages and likes and dislikes on YouTube, which that's something that you can see more on YouTube than you can on podcasts.
Yes.
Well,
we have had a couple bad reviews on Apple Podcasts. Let's just, and one of them was like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
But we read it on the air. We're like, hey, we're going to read all the reviews. It doesn't matter if they're good, bad. So
yeah, we'll wait for Tim to come back there for that. But I think that what surprised me sometimes is this idea that that some things that you think aren't going to be controversial or aren't going to, really stir up much that do. And then sometimes you do, like when I did the CRT episode, I think I was sweating before we even started that episode because I was like, what's
the backlash I'm going to get from it?
Right. And surprisingly, there was very little to almost none. I think I had a couple comments on YouTube that were from some guy that was, I think he was Hare Krishna or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, we got Tim back.
Hey, back, Tim.
That was all part of the what was the controversial episode? I'm like, I'm out of here. Just going for the timing.
You heard cigar and you're like, smoke break.
I'm out.
Right. That's right. Got me.
You're union, aren't you?
That's right. Hear the buzzer going off over here.
Called out. Oh, jeez.
That was appropriate to have technical difficulties. Why?
Yeah, very appropriate.
So I do have one more question really in regards to what we're talking about. And that is because I know, Chris, you've been starting to do some short videos.
Trying to. Get COVID, so I'm wondering if that's a sign.
But one of the things that we see a lot of these days is this TikTok theology.
Yeah.
These short little, because I know I took part in doing the 60-second splashes, those videos. What is your thoughts on those?
I'll give you my personal thoughts. I can't speak for the podcast. I'll give you my personal thoughts. They can be useful tools, but we can also abuse those useful tools. And I think, it's fun, like Mark was saying, to humanize our brand, right? To get people to say, hey, these guys aren't just going to beat me over the head with the Bible. They're going to actually, they live life. They can have fun. And I think that's really important for people to see. Mark and I never want to be put up on a pedestal, right?
Right.
So this is why I'm sure.
Well, my flesh nature does.
Rodney, I know you've seen it. I don't know about you, Tim, but I know the funny reels that I'm doing about me finding my kids Sour Patch Kids, and actually that was so true. I just looked in the cupboard and I'm like, oh, Sour Patch Kids. Oh, I should do a reel on this. And just doing some funny things to humanize myself. I don't want people to look at me like I used to look at pastors. They're untouchable. They're up on this pedestal. They make no mistakes, and then they fall. Right. And then my world is like, what happened? This person was supposed to be a godly person. This person I put up on a pedestal. I almost made an idol of this person. And now what does this mean for me? And I've seen it happen so many times to people, even to somebody that we personally know from Mark's old youth group saw somebody fall. It was your ex-wife, and it destroyed her, and it made her question everything. And I don't want us or this podcast to ever be up there. And so to me, I use it as a tool, not only to obviously plug in RTC and obviously we want people to listen, but to also, it's a way to humanize us a little bit more. So
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was pulling up a text message, here from a good friend of mine, Sam. Her and I both have the same idea and belief where we like to know what's going on with, TikToks, or not even just TikToks, but we call them like TikTok preachers. And so she sent me one the other day and she goes, what's your thoughts on this? And it was about this guy where basically we can say no to God. And he brought the passage of, when God was about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham was like, no, don't let me. Or it was Abraham, right? Was Abraham that he told her? Was a lot? And so he's like, go find one righteous person, and he couldn't. Or when God was about to do something with this, and Moses was like, no, don't do it. And his whole point in his little TikTok preaching sermon was, we can say no to God when it's going against his character. And I'm like, huh? I'm very confused on how this goes. And so we were texting Romans back 9. And forth a little bit. But she says, she goes, I just thought it was an interesting interpretation. It feels weird to assume that we can say no to God. Like, that seems like a very dangerous line to walk. And TikTok preaching is like good to be aware of, but also treads in some murky waters, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And so for us, we are our target demographic. And that's just, at the end of the day, we have to market in some regards. So our target demographic are people who literally consume TikTok and Instagram. Like, that's who our target demographic is people who are searching and asking and trying to figure things out. And so, we're not trying to reach the high lofty theologians who already have beards and smoke cigars and like John Calvin have wine stipends whenever they preach. But we're also not trying to reach the evangelical. That we're really trying to reach the everyday person that has a normal job, normal families, got some kids, and they're just trying to live for Jesus. And they're like, we need some help and some encouragement.
That person who shows up to church, 5 minutes before it starts and then is out right afterwards.
That's our people.
Those are the people.
Those are our people,
So speaking of your people,
there was a great comment that just came in.
This is why I listen to RTC. You are real, and I appreciate that.
Okay, I'm gonna call you. Can I call you homegirl? I know.
Thanks,
I know you're like
she's
way
a
older
supporter,
than me.
yeah.
But so Kathy is one of the very few people that constantly, and Sabrina. We also love Sabrina. But Kathy always comments on everything and sends us messages. She goes, "Oh, I'm looking forward to this episode." And
very encouraging.
Very encouraging. Yeah. So Kathy's one of our so we can say, because we're live, Kathy, you're one of our favorites. Can we have favorites? We're gonna have favorites. You're one of our favorites.
You're one of Mark's favorites. I can't have favorites. That's not biblical. I'm not God. I can't have the chosen.
Disconnect. And there way, do we have a disconnect button?
It's like it's like children. You can't have favorites. You just gotta love them all.
There's ones that don't annoy you as much as others.
But it specifically says don't lift up people and give them a special seat over here. There's scripture
Thank
about
you,
it, man.
Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, seriously.
Oh man. So, and I can actually say this, when it comes to TikTok theology, I think one of my biggest concerns is always the lack of context in what's being said and what's being preached. Knowing from doing those 60-second videos, some stuff needs way more context than what you can give in that 60 seconds. So I just think that's my biggest concern, especially with a lot of these young kids that are putting out these, quick, small one minute videos and stuff on scripture.
Coffee mug Christianity.
That was one of my favorite episodes we've done. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's one of my biggest concerns when I see that TikTok theology method. Sometimes you just have to do more.
Yeah, and that's it. And I know that's why you started the podcast, because you're like, we need more than 60 seconds. And we are unapologetic about we're long form podcasters.
Mm-hmm.
And we love listening to people like I love listening to like Craig Groeschel leadership, where that's like 20 minutes in your face, pound out leadership. But my all-time favorite podcast is the Unbelievable podcast with Justin Briley out there in London, England. Sometimes those episodes are an hour 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And because and that's why the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill is proof that people want good content no matter how long it is,
Right.
And like the Lord of the Rings blew that out the water for movies.
Yeah.
So I think when people are like, oh, people just need 20-minute sermons, or people just need 15-minute devotionals, or this or that, the other.
We can't even get to the introduction on 20 minutes.
No, it's true. and so for us, I know you guys feel the same thing, is the fact of, we've had to split up, like Rodney, when you were on the show, we had to split up that conversation into two different conversations that still lasted like 3 hours.
It was great, though. It was a great conversation.
Right, because there's so many times where, you have to give context to what you're saying. And that's the thing with these TikTokers. And that's what I love a lot about, like certain people like Justin Briley, who does these 1 minute, really, really quick TikToks. It's to get them to listen to the podcast. Or like Red Pen Logic. I don't know if you guys follow him on Instagram. Yes. Dude, he's been I like that is a goal to get him on this show. But what he does, Tim, is he takes screenshots of people's, for lack of better words, arguments against Christianity, no matter what the topic is. He takes a little red pen on his iPad and he'll like X things out and write little notes all around and correct everything that they say. And then he will then put in the captions of, him explaining it. But he started doing now TikTok and Instagram reels where he does these really, I know you see it, Rodney, where it's like 45 seconds of debunking these different people's things. Right. But when he went on the Alicia Childers podcast, they were on there for like an hour because he was able to actually do it.
Can I just say, though, a good, but what does the Bible say Insta reel would be like, Tim, you make your K-cup coffee. And then Rodney, you make a good cup of coffee. And then that just say mega church versus reform. That would be an awesome Insta reel. I'm just saying.
Would be.
Yeah, that's happening. Don't worry.
So next on Instagram.
How to lose followers 101.
All right. So here,
church, our church.
Here you go. I understand 60-second TikToks are not enough, but it will get you out there in the algorithm. It will get people to click on your page and even start watching your podcast.
That's what we're talking about.
Good point, Ezra. And that's that's what I was saying. It's a good tool to have, but we can abuse the tool, right? So there's a place for it. But it shouldn't be your main tool of choice.
Like honestly, like I have a lot of I think a lot of our conversations can be built around Instagram reels where it's like, hey, quick thoughts for the deconstructioner, or 5 quick thoughts about gluttony, and then we go boom, 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 boom. Listen to them more on the podcast.
Yeah, and then you tag your episode a little bit.
But part of it is even
almost like a trailer.
Like even though we do a lot of this stuff, and I make videos all the time for work, I hate doing it on my phone. It's a lot of work, and we found that God's going to do with our podcast whatever He wants to do.
And we leave it in His hands.
And we have found a lot of community through Spotify. Not even, we have a website, and I know Ezra asked the question. Yes, Ezra, I'm in the comments. I'm reading every comment you make.
Wow.
And so I even said hi to her on that. Oh, see, Kathy even gave us a little smiley face. But Ezra asked, have we ever thought of turning our questions into actual written content people can can digest and do. And that's the goal. I mean, we have a highly built out, very categorized website so people can do that.
Right.
But, you know, and that's something we could talk about, I guess, with some of the money that we get from sponsorships of, can we start paying for people to use transcriptions?
Right.
But I know Fuller's one of his goals. I'm just going to throw you out there, homie. One of Fuller's goals is to write a book based off of our podcast.
It is. Yeah. And they go through on each episode and make a chapter out of each episode.
Like a 3-4 page chapter just for each question that we do.
I was gonna say, please, yeah, because if you go by normal chapters, that could be really long.
Well, it would probably be several volumes.
Multiple volumes. Yeah.
If I wrote it, there'd be a lot of typos.
But to take our show notes and take them into like a good 5 to 10 page chapter and just do, you know, pick out certain ones that go together. And that's kind of the dream of mine.
And we love to do it. But the nice thing is there's already people out there like gotquestions.org that we use pretty much every episode.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other blogs out there. So we know there's a lot of people already doing that. And so for us, we're like, our time is limited. We don't have a lot of bandwidth to even do it. Like, that's why if you look on our Instagram, there's always Fuller, if he has extra reels, I'm like, praise the Lord. This is awesome. But if you look at our wall, there's always 3 posts. And so sometimes those posts are like, I post one on Thursday when the episode drops, then it's like, oh no, I need to drop 2. So I'll drop one on
Monday,
Tuesday, one on Wednesday, then another one on Thursday.
Right.
So we can keep the grid the way the grid's supposed to go. And so which honestly is not the best tactic ever. But, you know, the fact of we've grown our community based off Spotify, and then people find us on social media. It's kind of the way it works. And there's already so many platforms out there. And we can only do so much.
And honestly, again, like Mark said earlier, we've kind of left it in the hands of God. We're going to do what we can do. We're not going to just be like, oh, we're going to hit record and, you know, we're going to put in some work.
Right. We try to do clickbaitable titles.
But we have always been, whether we had 1 listener or whether we had 1 million listeners, we're going to continue to do this for the glory of God until God says no more. And that's our goal.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think, is there any, I'm not sure if any of the viewers have any questions or not. I know that one of the things that I was thinking about, and I was thinking about this earlier, because I know Tim and I have an idea board, right? So we have
one in Evernote.
Yeah. And we use Google for ours and Google Docs.
Yeah.
And
we had to download it.
So one of the interesting things is and Tim sometimes will come to me and say, hey, why don't we do something on this topic? Right. And I'm looking at Tim, and Tim, he's going to know exactly. We need a lot more time to study on that one.
All the time. My wife wants us to do an episode on polygamy, and I'm like, I really need to study on polygamy.
I have been watching Sister Wives with Beth, and it's fascinating.
Yes, I watch it with Janelle. So,
but Beth has been asking us to do one on the Old Testament. Is the Old Testament genocidal racist God versus New Testament,
or predestination, or dispensational or covenant theology. That's another one. It's like, oh man, that's a huge one.
Man.
Oh, there's a puppy.
Doggy.
I was going to ask you if they were going to make a appearance.
Well, they just did.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think they've actually walked it. There goes one in the background.
There you
right
go.
Now.
Awesome. Real talk. Real talk.
Well, right before we logged on to StreamYard here with you guys, my kids were running around upstairs because my living room is right above us, and they were like, woo, and singing the Encanto. So, it's only a matter of time.
You're right.
Yeah, it's funny because I know, like, Tim and I were talking about, I can't remember what the topic was. I'd actually have to look at the idea board, and now my bird's going nuts too. We have a parrot.
Hey, it's a parent.
But
Dad joke over here.
Cue the curtain or whatever.
And Tim is disconnected.
Fade to black.
but
good. I feel bad. You've been sitting there the whole time, Tim.
Yeah,
You're kind of quiet today.
That's what I do. Yeah. That's why I can't believe people told us to cut down on the banter. This is my banter.
What banter?
Yeah.
But I think if I looked at our idea board, there was a couple topics that like we were discussing possibly doing, and when you start really looking into them, just like you said, dispensationalism, I'm just like, that by itself is just like,
I need about 300 hours to study that.
Yeah.
To try to condense it.
I got my Grudums back there, and we could just open that up. And
I've got my Grudums. I've got my Ericsson.
And on my iPad, I got a lot of old people.
I'll just pull out the Providence by Piper, and we'll just go through that.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to what we talked about earlier, and that is when we talk about preparation.
Yeah.
So there are some topics that Tim and I can do. We just call them softballs.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you just because there are sometimes when you just don't have enough preparation on some of those bigger topics.
Yeah.
To jump into. I think it's good to have some softball topics that people want to know the answers to that you already know.
Right.
You already know the answers to. So sometimes it's good to have those in your back pocket. I know we have a couple on our idea board still that are easier topics to talk about for Tim and I. But as far as, because sometimes, man, you look at your idea board and you go, let's see, we're supposed to record this tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you've been working for the entire week because we record weekly. You've been working the entire week trying to figure out what to write about.
Right.
And then come Friday, you're like, I have no idea. So I call it it's writer's block. It's like we're authors and it's writer's block.
And
you're
like, we had the beautiful thing of like yesterday, I was scared about, the episode we're about to record after we get off air with you guys. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I just slapped out in our Instagram community, hey, ask us anything. So we have like 10 questions that we could literally at any second just play and we just go.
Yeah.
One episode we had no idea what to do, so we had Janelle just put a question in like an envelope.
we're like, we're gonna open it, so we're on the podcast. We're like, all right, we got this random note. We don't know what it's gonna say, and we're just gonna answer it off the top of our heads. No prep.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, like I know, seriously, I know you guys feel this. We could talk about any topic,
right?
But if we're going to be teachers, and which we view ourselves as that, if we're not just a Christian conversational podcast. Like we have real conversations,
right?
Yeah.
However, those conversations have to be grounded in scripture, but B, also tested out in the field as well. So we can have chit chats all day long, but I mean, at the end of the day, people aren't going to want to listen. So there is a level of, as podcasters, we have to ask, what do our people and we call them the RTC fam. What does the RTC family just actually want to know? Because if we're talking about literally stuff that nobody else cares about.
Well, like, okay,
that's just not serving our people well.
So we've got a two-part.
Oh, you pulled it up.
Yeah, I pulled up our idea board real fast. So we got a two-part on our idea board.
Yeah, it's women in leadership. It's been there for a long time.
Well, but I just added two, but I know it's something that may be later on, but it's angels and demons, angelology and demonology. It would be like a two-part thing, but those are like, it's going to require a lot of study. And do our listeners ever want to, sometimes we just throw up ideas we have, but we got to flesh it out. Is that something our listeners are even into? Do they want to hear about it? Do they have questions about it? But yeah, we've got predestination versus free will. It came out of a conversation I had with the listener over the past week. I think over the past week, I've had a conversation about all the verses surrounding predestination, but what about sin? And it's like
I forgot about number 11. Christian movies. Do they actually have to be biblical?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got that. We've got the Diotrephes disease in the church.
You explain that real quick.
So it's basically dissension in the church, Tim. That's what it is.
Oh, no. Explain it to me. Not just
Tim. It was this guy in the Bible who was causing dissension in the church. Okay.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yes.
You spell that?
Yeah. Sure. It's DIOTREPHES.
With all the
just like it sounded.
Just like it sounds.
Like all the prep we have to do. It's not like we're Dave Cummins of Time Suck, who has these beautiful 3-hour long, historically documented, factual episodes.
That's why we pull Rodney on the podcast. We want those episodes.
I mean, as much as we say we love RTC, I mean, what does the Bible say? Like, these are passion projects,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We do it because we love it.
Right.
But it doesn't make it easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get.
So here we go. There we go. Checking in from Lincoln.
What's up, Kyle? Al Bogart.
Love what you guys are doing. My question: are followers of Christ required to go to church? If not, is solo worship acceptable?
Yeah.
Thanks and love both podcasts.
We talk about this a lot.
Softball.
What episode did we talk about this most frequently in? Most recently?
Does online church count?
Yes. That would be a great episode for that one.
So
me and Tim have talked about this topic quite a bit too.
Good. It's a softball all the way around. Tim, why don't you go ahead and lead this one out? You've been quiet. We've been talking much. I need some water here, so go ahead.
Oh man, I was busy reading the comments, guys.
No, we got some good ones in there, man.
Totally got me. You got me.
That question from Amy. Yo, Ezra,
I feel like I've missed a whole conversation because I haven't been reading the comments.
Ezra, can you follow us and be part of our RTC family?
Oh man, right?
Girl, you are on the ball with these comments.
Yeah, she's done
Not
so
gonna
much.
pull it up.
You need to leave. It's almost 2 a.m. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah. You got to remember she's in the Netherlands.
That's right.
So-
Ezra, yeah, follow us and hit us up.
Are you sure you want to leave though? Because we're about to have some really good conversation.
Answered by,
Oh, yeah.
answered by Tim.
Answer by them.
All right,
Tim, go ahead.
we're gonna mute
Yeah.
ourselves.
Oh,
Now you're
man.
talking.
Yeah,
I'll
right.
bring up the question again, and then here's something that, and I'll go ahead and lead this one off a little bit.
But you're not
this is-
Tim.
I know I'm not.
You didn't know his middle name was Tim. His third middle
Sorry,
name.
Rodney. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm being disrespectful. I'm being disrespectful.
No, man,
No.
but this is definitely something that has just over the years, you see it in a different light, like we've already talked about, right? Like your experience when you first become a Christian, like you can easily see it both ways, right? And I think the more you learn and the more you read, like you just see this theme that, when you say you can't be solo, right? Like when you say you can't be solitary, like I think about the word they use. It can be your faith is personal, but it's not private. I think that's kind of where my mind
Yes,
sort of
there you
goes with that sort of thing, right? And I know you're talking about like memes, like one-liners, but I just feel like that gives me so much clarity as far as, it kind of starts there, but it can't end there to an extent.
Yeah, I think for me, this one is there's so many places in the scriptures that say abide together. You know what I'm saying? That with one another and stuff like that. And especially through the book of Acts. And you see this constant, community together. And so I think that whenever we think about solo Christians, I know a lot of people like to point to Paul, but we have to understand that Paul was actually sent out from a church.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
They
So he
fasted and
wasn't-
prayed and laid hands on him before they sent him out.
Yes. So it's important to
He
understand
still
that.
had people. He still had people.
Yeah.
So I do think that a Christian should always want to be a part of the body of Christ in person also, not just online, because I think it's important for you to form those relationships in person.
We always say, find your tribe.
Yeah.
Find your tribe. You gotta have a close-knit community that you're a part of. So, we talk about there's different layers. There's different, if you think about a drop of water in a lake, there's different ripples, right? So your inner ripple is your internal family. Like for me, it would be my wife and my children. That's my internal ripple. And then outside of that would be, Mark and a couple close friends of mine. And then outside of that would be my small group. And then outside of that would be my local church body. And so, but you're constantly you have to connect to all these ripples. It's so important to, one, not fall into temptation, and two, just not to lose your way. You guys, the abide, the love one another. You can't do these things by yourself, but there's also the forsake not the assembly of the brethren. That's a big one we hit on all the time. And it's so important not to forsake the assembly together. And we always say, even in conversations with listeners that we have is, they'll ask us questions about stuff and we're like, great. Yeah. So here's what we think, but you need to also find yourself a local body. Like that's what you need. We'll be here.
We joke that we're the vitamins.
Yeah. We're the supplement, but you got to still go eat.
We're just trying to get to the main course. Yeah. No, Rodney,
great.
throw that follow-up from Kyle up on the screen if that's
Yeah.
okay. Like that follow-up is really key for the context. Because, with all of this, I get it to some extent, because we also had an episode where we talked about when the church hurts you and overcoming church hurt, or does the church overuse its members? Like we've had conversations around this, and we firmly believe that church hurt is a real thing, because I've watched it happen to so many other different people.
It's happened to me.
Right. It has. I will say it has not happened to me. And I'm thankful for that. But I get where Kyle's coming from, though, in some regards. With Beth and I, we're actually in the process. I don't know how much we talked about it on the show. I don't remember, because we record episodes and we're still in our backlog a little bit.
Right.
But Beth and I, we're officially leaving Southside. We have officially cut our ties, isn't the right word, because it'll always be my church family. But we're officially moving on from Southside.
So we now officially go to different churches.
We go to different churches now. And the reason was just the fact of, the church that I was at with Southside was with me and my ex, and now Beth and the girls are there. So we want to find a church where we're the hides, not Mark and his new wife, Beth, and Mark and the new kids, And so we just want to be a place where we're the hides. There's no baggage. This was Mark's ministry.
Right.
Mark was a pastor. Some of the kids still call him Pastor Mark. It was just awkward,
Right.
And so we decided to move on and find a new church home. And I'm wrestling with this fact of how involved do I get with this church? Is it, not trying to think of, is this a layover church until my next real ministry? Like that's not it. It's more the fact of, I have a community with Fuller. I have a community, with so many other different really close friends that I have. I mean, if I have to, give up another night to go to another small group, now I'm out of the house 1, 2, 3, 4 times,
Right.
4 nights a week on one of the bad weeks. Some nights it's only 2 or 3, but it's like I still do all these different things at nights. And so it's like asking the question of where's community found? And I think we view going quote unquote to churches. That's the wrong question. I want to change the question. Is because the church is not, I mean, now, yes, we're America. We have corporate churches, corporate worship, all those things. But the church is not a body or a church is not supposed to be a corporate entity. It's supposed to be just a group of believers who gather together to worship God and then go out and do, to do the mission, do the work. And so many times people think of, as Christianity, so many people think that Christianity is a noun or it's a verb. Like I am a Christian and I go do Christian things. But the word Christianity and the word Christian was actually an adjective describing people who actually tried to live like Jesus. And, Jesus sent people out in groups of 2. He has groups of 12 followers. And then the church kind of formed from there. So do I think you need to be part of this massive church? Do I think you need to be part of this like massive small group? No, not necessarily. I think going to a house of worship is a crucial thing. I mean, we're all about the local church here. Yeah. But at the same time, you have to have a community where people actually know you. And if you're just online or if you're just listening to a podcast, like, yes, we teach, you guys teach. We are teachers of the word. And by trade and by training, I'm a pastor. I'm still ordained. But I'm not our listeners' pastor at all by any stretch of the imagination. Now we teach and we help and we encourage and we edify. But at the end of the day, Fuller knows my crap more than anybody. Well, besides Beth. Beth knows my crap too. But better. Yeah, definitely. But Fuller has called me out on it. But we've cried together, we've prayed together, we've hugged together, we've fought together. We've done we have literally gone through our best friends stabbing us in the back. We've gone through the affair that my wife had, and my response out of that. We've had to go through me leaving my job, and now with Beth, that I've had to not deal with you. That's not the right word, but the struggles of you of why am I always sick? Why have I been dealing with this? Why do I have to move? And then the stress that you and Janelle had with just not having your own home. We've gone through literally all the muck and turmoil of life together. Yep. And people always ask me, Mark, how did you get through COVID? How did you get through these things? I said, well, obviously my theology is what kind of helped and knowing what it is. However, it's the fact that I wasn't alone, because when you're alone, that's when you make the dumb decisions. When you're alone and you're bored, that's when you start turning to things that are not good for you. And so in my place of where I was at, especially after my wife left, I even told Fuller, I said, I'm not going to have alcohol in this house while I'm living by myself. I will never own a gun in this house. I won't, because all it takes is one bad moment. And I don't want anybody to mishear. So I'm just going to clarify something with Mark. Mark is not saying all you need is that tight knit, close group. You do need the local body. You do need that corporate portion of it. Even Paul himself had to go and present himself in Timothy to the Jerusalem council. Right. He was still under the subjection of the higher authority of the church. And just as we are, he's saying it's important to have that close-knit community, but not necessarily forsaking everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, I did want to make a real quick point out. If for women that are listening in on this right now, go check out Berean Babes. That is an awesome channel.
I've actually never known that channel, so this is good stuff.
Yeah, she does a really good job, and she is extremely biblical. So for the women who need to go find somebody to follow on YouTube,
you better add her.
Yeah, I'm going to. and Kyle, I want to lean to this because you just commented again. All I want to say, dude, is I'm sorry you had to walk through that, buddy. I really am, and I can't say anything else besides just the fact of I'm sorry. That's hard to go through, and I see why you would have that picture and mentality of the church, but also just my encouragement is don't let one bad church ruin all the other churches. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of bad churches, big, small, evangelical, fundamental. We call them fundies. Progressive Christians, whatever grouping you want to find yourself in. There's always going to be people that just do bad things because the church is full of people and people are sinners.
I was going to say churches are full of sinners saved by grace. We all still make mistakes. There's nobody perfect in church, and this is something we go over in Church Hurt episode. It's hard. It really is hard.
And I would encourage you to really seek out in your heart how to forgive. You don't have to necessarily put yourself back under that, but to be able to forgive those situations.
And if I can give one more piece of encouragement, the best way to find a community in a church, because like right here, I'm like, Berean Babes, when you say your church is your first community, let's go.
Yeah, right.
But the thing that the only encouragement I want to give is the easiest way to find community and to find someone who actually can do that is literally just going and serving in a ministry. So find a niche, find something you enjoy to do. And, you might be like, I don't want to do a Bible study. I don't want to get in a small group because it's going to be kind of weird. I might be ostracized. Just go serve somewhere, man. Get on the tech teams. Youth groups always could use another small group leader.
Greeters.
Greeters. Because here's the deal. When you have a common purpose, that gets rid of a lot of awkwardness.
Right.
And that's coming from a guy who's had to train a lot of people for this, is if you feel awkward and uncomfortable in groups, a common goal of, hey, we're going to be the first miles that people see, and we're going to do it together. We're going to be awesome. Well, what's going to happen when the doors are closed and waiting for people to walk in? You're going to chit chat. You're going to get to know somebody. Right. And then once you can get past that first awkwardness, they might not be your best friend or your forever friend, but maybe it'll help you get that one more step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, it has been quite a evening, hasn't it?
Hey, we still got more. We're still rip roaring ready to go over here, man.
We're going to be going until about 1 a.m. So you can continue on as long as you want.
I'm
Man.
Matter of fact, here we go. See, I still got some left in here.
Oh,
too,
look at you. Yeah, we're empty, but we've moved on to the bubblies now in the LaCroix. So,
yes.
what you got there? I can't.
This is okay. So, Tim, you may not know this. These guys drink a lot of seltzer water, also, just like I do. This is Polar, and
Very
this
nice.
is their orange vanilla.
Wait. What brand?
Polar.
I've never heard of that. Where do you get that from?
Yeah, I've heard
what
of
is that?
I don't know where my wife gets these.
Isn't that like, I think it's like Costco.
From the liquor store?
Okay.
No. It's not that kind of seltzer water.
So I'm drinking the bubbly coconut pineapple, and it's really good.
And you're a bubbly fan.
I'm a bubbly fan first and foremost.
I'm a LaCroix first person.
But I will drink anything.
Yeah, you will. Right? Yeah, and I'm drinking the watermelon, the pastèque. I can never do it. This and pumpkin mousse is my favorite.
Interestingly enough, the watermelon is the one that got me started.
That's what got me started too. And it was like, you know what? Hands down, I'm addicted.
And
now.
it's because of Soche. It's because of Pastor Brando.
Pastor
bringing
Brando.
all these seltzer water. Go, hey, dude, you got to try this.
Yeah, he started it for us. Created monsters.
He created a problem. So now we have coffee burps and seltzer water burps.
Yes.
And we have
cherry. I've never had cherry. That's a what?
Wow.
Now I will
Cherry.
say that there is some
Controversy.
like cherry lime. I think is one of my favorite ones.
I've never had any cherry.
Cherry lime is really, really good too.
Yeah.
I've never had that.
But we featured the sounds of the bubbly on the show, where we've cracked open the can and just like put it up to the microphone. You can hear it like popping all the little bubbles. It's great.
Since I have the power of the RTC YouTube, I'm going to comment to Berean Babes right now with cherry and then give that little face. Wait, where's the raised eyebrow face? It's not. It's
Right.
probably already caught up. I can't find the emoji.
I know. Which word is it that relates to that emoji, right? Where it like automatically fill it for you.
Yeah, right.
That's what I do half the time. Like, I don't want to look this up. It's like,
That's
Winky
usually
face.
what I do. But normally I could find this one quick, but I'm not.
I just stick with the LOL, and then I know I'll get the laughy face. I'm
Yes.
like, good.
that's right.
I
Can't go
want
wrong.
the very specific eyebrow raise, kind of like, what is
Like
you
the,
talking about, Willis?
Mhm.
And I can't find it. So we're just going to do this one.
We reeled Ezra back in, but now she's leaving for real.
Bye, Ezra.
Bye, Ezra.
Bye, Ezra. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh man.
Jeez, 2 that's some real dedication right there.
All right, so if we're gonna leave this, we have to leave it correct. And
Oh
so
yeah.
are you ready?
So Rodney
for
was
a
just trying to
fun
wrap it
fact
up.
with Fuller.
I got to get off the idea board here real fast. Hang
That's
on.
why Rodney was so
While you're
was
pulling
pushing
that
so
up,
hard
I
to
don't
end
know,
it.
Tim, what do you do for where do you work? Because we talked
am a-
about what all of us do.
That's right. Yeah, I guess we kind of like we're like in interview mode, and it's like, yeah, I'm a logistics engineer for the civil service.
So you're a
work for the-
genius.
I work for the government.
So you're a genius, is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically, right.
Well, he did graduate from
I'm
Rolls-Holman.
saying it, but I'm
Wait, back this up. You're a Rose
Let's
Holman dude?
Let's not bring that into this. You know what's funny though?
Wait,
Because
but seriously, you're a Rose Holman guy?
yeah.
Good
But-
for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know what that is.
I'll have to say thank you.
Y'all make fun of the
All I can
Purdue
say-
engineers.
Right?
You know what that is.
That's right. That's what's funny, right? We have that rivalry with Purdue that they don't know exists. We're so little. Yeah, exactly.
The only reason why I know is because there's a good friend of mine. Well, actually, he's now the youth minister at Southside. He graduated from Rose Holman back in the day. So,
Yeah, we have there. So Rose Holman sells shirts. I don't know if you know this. They say friends don't let friends go to Purdue. But
yeah,
nobody at Purdue knows that. Nobody cares.
but Rose Holman shirt.
That's right. We're serious.
In case anybody's wondering, that's like what, like the Yale of engineering schools.
Of undergraduate
much.
engineering schools, sure. Yeah.
So no wonder why he's quiet. He's an engineer.
Now you know the secret.
Tim calculates everything.
I know.
The risk benefit
Listen,
analysis.
Mechanic, I know all about this, and that just means introvert. That's all it means.
Right, right.
I went to school because I didn't want to have to deal with people.
I work for mommy bloggers for a living, so
That's true. You do.
they're not called mommy bloggers. These women are business. I mean, they run some good businesses, and I get to build a lot of fun websites for them.
They're the Medeas of the blogging world.
Dude, man, these people have like their business plans are like I'm looking at them going, man, y'all could run the world. If the world ran this way, we would have no issues.
All right. Anyways, I'm ready, Rodney.
I'm ready.
You ready to go?
I'm ready. All right. So the fun fact of the day is
Wait, hold on.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
Oh, he's got to play the little.
I wasn't ready.
Jeez.
Time for Fun Facts with Filler.
Wait for it.
That's my oldest daughter.
I do that same laugh every time.
Yeah. All
That's
right.
awesome.
I do that same laugh every time.
So the fun fact of the day is, did you know that apple pie isn't actually American at all? The next time you call something as American as apple pie, you might want to consider the fact that neither apple pies nor apples originally came from America. Apples are, in fact, native to Asia, and the first recorded recipe for apple pie was actually written in England.
Really?
So there's your fun
There you
fact
go.
of the day.
I did not
It's
know
not
that.
as American as apple pie.
Now, see, I didn't know about about the apples. I did not know that.
See,
Thanks for just destroying my identity.
all I had was apple pie and baseball.
Kyle said the intro was a vibe for Fun Facts with Fuller.
yeah.
He didn't say a vibe, but I'm gonna assume he's saying vibe because I like the word vibe. That was dope.
Uh-huh.
Calm down.
Yeah.
I think you
Man.
my words this episode.
Sorry, you'll get it next.
Yeah.
episode.
You didn't get to what?
He didn't get to say
I
dope
always
and
try to
vibe.
sneak in my millennial millennial words.
You're a Gen Z. Let's just go straight to the source.
But man, since I stepped out of youth ministry and I've been working with like actual real adults, I've kind of lost my touch on that.
I know you've actually turned into an adult. You hit puberty finally.
Right. It's amazing what that does, right?
Sorry. I love you, Mark.
Vibe indeed. Kyle, my bro's got me. My boy's got me. I am that guy. When I say my boy, it's BOI, and I say like even though it's just THO. I don't actually spell the words.
Uh-huh. Right.
Yeah, and Kyle says vibe indeed.
That's what
Yes,
they were saying.
sir.
Yeah. I want to throw it up there.
Oh,
Yes, I gave Tim some powers.
Right. Right.
powers.
He's got
One in my
power.
head. Like, let's watch
All
out.
right, Tim. Let's hear it. Let's hear you sing. I got the power now.
That's one of the spiritual gifts I.
Hey, God said make a joyful noise.
That's right. That's,
On pitch.
I always
You
tell
know.
people I feel sorry for the people sitting in front of me at church.
Tim, you obviously haven't listened to many of our episodes where we constantly sing off pitch. And we're like, hey, whatever.
Fun, right?
Dude, no. Back this gravy train up. Hold on. When you sang the song from Encanto on like 2 episodes ago, and all of a sudden
with
the
the-
Creed voice came out,
The 90s
yeah.
growl.
Oh, yeah,
and it actually sounded good. I'm like, this isn't even fair. Like, this is not fair. The best I can do is a Thomas Rhett impersonation
holding
when
back.
he talks and he doesn't actually sing.
Right. That's it.
Close as I can get. Which side note, if you want to listen to an interesting story, like Google him and his wife on a podcast interview. They recently did her own podcast. He has a really fascinating story.
Wow.
Side note, he loves Jesus. And he has a conflict sometimes of like, he goes, I know I sing songs that say, you know, the beer's going to get me through the day. But he goes, I don't really believe that, but that's what people want. So that's what the people are going to get.
Yeah.
But what does the Bible say?
Right. What does the Bible say?
Yeah.
That sounds like a really interesting conversation. Yeah.
There's a YouTube channel out there about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I-
Something like that.
Somebody tackle
And before we land this plane, Rodney, any other questions that we would need to talk about?
Well, I mean, Is there anything else that you guys want to ask or talk about?
We can ask them a question.
We can go all night, Rodney.
We can ask them. Okay, here's a question. Here's a question. Okay, so you guys talked about why you guys started and how you started the podcast, but where do you guys see your podcast going?
Ooh, where do you guys see yourself in 5 years?
5
right.
5 years,
dude. They don't even. None of us know what's gonna have in 5 minutes.
I can already see it in Tim's face. He's like, we'll have the president of the United States on for some apple pie.
That's right.
But seriously, like what's next? What does the Bible say? Because you guys have been doing a lot more live streams. And you guys have been doing a lot more of bringing a lot of other people on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rodney's got a great vision, just a great direction for everything. So, certainly.
well, I don't know if I really got a great vision. I think sometimes it's scatterbrained of a vision, but
we just show up and press record and hope something good happens. That's what we do.
Right. But you know, really, what the thing is you know, it is fun to get people on to interview. I know I did bring on, you know, a lot of people don't know this. Dr. Jason White, when I brought him on, he was actually somebody who commented on one of our videos and gave us a negative comment.
Really?
Said, oh, really? Why don't you just come on to an episode?
Nice.
And he actually he brought it up and said,
nobody else leaves any more comments. Like, whoa.
You're gonna bring it on
and disconnect.
That's right.
But I think that, you know, I mean, for what we have for a vision, I think is really just trying to make sure that we teach people that they need to look at the Bible themselves more than anything, and also to go join a local body of Christ and get into a church. I think that the big thing that we see across the nation, across the Western world for churches, and one of the biggest problems is biblical illiteracy. A lot of people don't know that they can actually go read the Bible themselves, not just listen to.
Wait, hold up!
It's amazing, isn't
I know,
it?
right?
Yeah, I mean, but the truth is a lot of times I know when we were on your episode, we talked about, you know, false teachings and stuff like that. One of the biggest ways that we can teach people to spot it is to teach them how to read the Bible themselves.
Right.
And I think that that's one of the biggest things. A lot of times what you end up with is people who are just, they're listening to their teacher, and their teachers are all they're leaning on. And that's not what it's supposed to be. You know, I just think that's one of the biggest things that we need to make sure that we do is to help people learn how to read the Bible themselves. So,
and with coming out of that question, then, man, it's time for our turn. We should have been recording this. Because
Rodney's been wanting to film more outdoors, but go ahead. That's the big direction.
Well, outdoors.
He's wanting to have some outdoor episodes in nature.
Yeah, do some camping.
That's what he wants to do.
By a campfire. Like,
yes,
hey, it's Bible time with Rodney.
Yes. Well, you know, the next time I'm in Indiana.
Right?
Yes. We should just make a camping
Watch
trip.
out. Rodney's going to show up.
Why do we want to, like, literally, guys?
Okay.
Why do we want to go camping when there's something called indoor plumbing?
We'll leave Gen Z at home.
I mean, your boy wants some marshmallows.
The 90s baby can stay here.
Yeah, earlier I was going to say, you know, like millennials, like we understand each other.
I mean, I grew up going camping every now and then, and I'm here for it. I went on an Alaska trip where we floated down a river for a whole week inside of like tents and whatnot, and then we had to go through bear training. That was terrifying.
Yes.
That was terrifying. But people who are like, let's go camp. No.
Yeah, I'm all about it. So, you know.
But so going back into, you know, teaching people the Bible, do you guys find that you guys have a lot of church members that listen to your show, or is it more the fact of you guys have more of a national audience and it just gets the you know, lean into the fact that you guys are under the umbrella of a church?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I think with YouTube, you can't see the demographics or the locations as much as you can on, like, we use Buzzsprout, and on Buzzsprout, we can see the locations of where everybody's listening from the podcast.
Isn't it so cool?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool to see that.
So cool.
And when you look at those kinds of things, of course, we do have some Virginia Beach, some Chesapeakes, you know what I'm saying? And I you know, expect that a lot of those are people from our church that are listening. But then you just see this long list of cities and stuff that some of them I've never heard of before.
I don't know.
Geography is horrible.
We see a lot of states, and I think our top three are California, Oregon, and Texas.
So the three states
really
that wishes they were their own countries.
Yeah, California. I was shocked. Was like number one. I'm like, people in California listen to us.
Hey, look at we hit 1. We hit 106.5 just today. Look at
that. Oh man.
I'm pulling this up. I use Buzzsprout for my other like podcast.
But we use
Podbean.
We Podbean, yeah. And I'm
Okay.
actually happy with Podbean.
I'm really happy with it.
It's really
Yeah.
easy to use.
See, now you got me curious to look and see what locations.
You know, this is going to be like a 3-hour long live stream.
Right.
It's really a Lord of the Rings
All right,
movie.
so you ready for this?
Right.
So in the last, I don't know if this is the last 30 days, just the month of February.
Yeah, you should be able to pull up the states. by the states.
United States obviously top, but the second most popular country for us is the Philippines right now. The third is New Zealand. Fourth is Canada, which that's probably all Sabrina. Let's be honest. It's probably all Sabrina. And then Peru, our friends, Joe and Kimberly Frericks down in Peru.
And then if you click
And then if we click the U.S., we can see states. We can see provinces.
So-
Ontario is our most popular
So states,
one.
it was California, Texas, Illinois right now.
Okay.
And then
Florida.
Florida.
Indiana's down on the list.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I can't see cities, but I can sure see states.
Now, see, for us, of course, United States, and then the next one is Canada. The next one is Germany, France, Australia, Mexico. Yeah,
That's like
we actually have some
one Navy
Russians,
person
too,
that's
that
running,
are-
that's going all around.
Which we did. We finally got someone who left a review, and he's like, "You guys have officially breached the Army." And we're like, "Yes!"
Well, we've breached the Army, Navy, and Air Force now.
And the U.S. consulate office in India.
I'm like, all right.
Yeah, wow. Right.
But yeah, I just think it's kind of interesting sometimes to see some of the places that you reach that you don't realize you can actually reach through this method. It's kind of interesting to see.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you think about it. Okay, my local church, at our church, at my church, it's like 250 people is a good day.
Yeah, now it's
And then I tell Pastor Scott, I'm like, yeah,
his jaw dropped.
we just crossed over $100,000. He's like, what?
He goes, so how is podcast going? And he's like, so how do stats work? I'm like, well, we had 13,000 downloads just last month. He goes, what does that mean? I'm like, 13,000 individual episodes were listened to.
Yeah.
Why people want to listen to that much of this, we don't know.
yeah. Now I think that brings up a good point though. Something that I was just thinking about, especially when it comes to podcasting, is something that people don't really understand is that the large numbers are not they're the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, they're like
Right.
we're in the top, like I think 2% of
Yeah.
all podcasts
Right.
when we crossed
Yeah.
over our thresholds.
Yeah. I believe
So yeah, because everybody thinks that we're
And
going to
not
go
as a
viral.
brag. I'm not saying that's a brag
it.
at
No,
all.
you're right. But no, absolutely.
But I mean, you hear these people who go viral immediately,
Yeah.
and people don't realize that is an exception, not the rule.
And
So-
those people are generally have some sort of a following anyways. Like, I always would get upset when we're trying to do something like we're like, hey, we're trying to have these conversations, and all of a sudden someone's like, hey, I just hit 1 million downloads. And we're like, yeah, because you're a celebrity, bro. That's
Yeah.
not fair.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like when megachurch pastors are like, hey, I just reached the New York Times bestseller. Yeah, because everyone in your church has bought your book, homie. Like,
Right.
that's not fair.
No, the church bought
The
all
church
the books.
bought
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Stock the store.
Right.
Yeah, that was the Mark Driscoll thing. Just saying.
Yep.
you were picking up what we were picking up.
That's right.
Now wait,
Stop.
you're telling me you haven't bought the Inspiration Cube?
Right.
No.
Oh, Joe Losey's little thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Have
that's
you
funny.
seen
That crap's funny.
That it's wow. $50 for it. I'm like, geez,
Wow.
I can do that.
I thought Babylon B made that at first.
No,
but it was
it's
not
real.
Babylon B.
It's real.
Right.
Inspiration Cube.
It's always a good
All
sign.
right, guys, we are approaching on 2 hours. I think.
Well, technically, we're still like an hour 45
All
because
right.
you both get
Right.
late.
So everybody, we're gonna take a short intermission.
That's right. Make some
And
more
we're gonna
coffee.
start. Yeah, we're gonna start our next episode of Lord of the Rings. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, there
Let's
we go.
go. DJ
Let's
Mays!
go. Yeah.
Yes. What's up, DJ?
Well, I think they want to hear more, Rodney. I don't know.
Right.
Okay, so fun fact.
It's all
fun
because
fact.
of Tim, though.
DJ Mays is his name, but he's also a DJ. We
Yes.
have officially confirmed it.
Okay.
Yep.
And we always say, let's go.
Let's go.
So DJ Mays knows what's up. What's up, homie?
That's awesome.
Anyways, go ahead, Rodney. All
All
right.
right.
We'll calm down. It's the coffee, I promise.
Oh, I know it
No,
is.
this
I
is
know
the
it is.
bubbly, homie.
Yeah.
This is the bubbly.
But guys,
Oh,
hey,
anywho. How do we
thank
land
you
this
guys.
plane?
Thank you guys for being on. This is absolutely outstanding to have you guys on and have this conversation. And yeah, I think, you know what? If we just went 2 hours, that means we just matched what, when you had me on yours.
Well, I think we got to keep going then. You guys got to win.
It's like you had a benchmark to.
You guys got to win now.
I mean, I will say, like on your episode, like the first half we were just learning about Rodney, and then we got into the real good stuff. Episode 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought both of them were
Both were good. I mean, both were good. I'm just saying number 2, we were like, and we're coming off swinging.
But I'm just saying, there's been 3 of us pretty much filling this this conversation the last 2 hours. I think we go 2 hours with Tim.
Right, probably. Yeah. All that
you can call it 2 hours with Tim.
Just Tim, you got the power. So just
I like that. Right.
Tim 2. Call it Tim 2. Call it Tim 2.
There you go. Right.
Timmy time.
Timmy time. All right. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. We'll be quiet.
All right. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining us on this episode, and thank you for spending this much time with us. This is awesome for you guys to take that time out, because I know you guys are probably going to start recording as soon as we get done here,
That's
right?
what you guys were saying. I know. It's funny, if there's anybody that should be trying to end this, you guys should be like, oh, seriously, guys.
We're like, we have 5.5 hours left to go.
Can we tell them our real secret of how we're able to podcast? Our wives don't mind us when we're down here, because then they get to do whatever they want.
My wife literally just told me tonight, and I hope she's watching, but I don't know if she is or not. She goes, I really like Friday nights. I look forward to them because I can put the kids to bed at 7:30. And then she goes, I get to watch whatever I want without having to feel guilty about like if you like it or not.
That's what my wife said.
She goes, it's like my one break away from everybody. I'm like, all right.
We're good. We're fine.
Yeah. So, I just thought it would be fun to have you guys on and talk about this topic, because the thing is, a lot of people don't understand how much actually is behind the scenes and what we actually deal with on a regular basis with trying to put these episodes out. And for Christians, I think it is important for us to remember to support one another and to help each other out, to actually network more. I mean, right? Because a lot of times we see these guys who don't, they just want to be all on their own, and they want to treat each other like competition. We're not competition. We are all on the same side in this. We are co-workers, for, coming together to bring people to Christ. And that's what we should be about. So,
and can I say it? Can I let the cat out of the bag a little? Not really. It's not even a cat. There's no cat and there's no bag. But I know we've talked about doing some sort of partnership and, podcast network and combining us with, Blue Collar Bible, right? Was that
Blue Collar Bible? Yeah. Blue Collar Bible Scholar.
And man, goodness, like you guys are great at communication.
Yeah.
We're lucky if we text each other during the week.
Usually it's like, hey, it's Thursday night. What are we going to podcast on tomorrow?
That's why we live for Friday nights, because like I FaceTimed you on Christmas and you thought I was like in trouble.
I thought he was in like the hospital.
That's what it's in Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right.
Thank you guys so much for letting us come on and ruin your show. But
this was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
You might not get a whole lot of thumbs up on YouTube because of this conversation, but it was a lot of fun.
Man, it is definitely a lot of fun. And that's what really matters. Yeah. And this is the last thing I think I'm going to put out there for other podcasters. Always remember, no matter what you're talking about, especially when you're talking about scripture, there are people that aren't going to like what you have to say, especially when you're speaking biblically. Yep. So expect thumbs down, on almost every video, right?
It's okay.
But give us a thumbs up while you're at
right. That's right.
I mean, last time I checked, when Jesus was preaching and he said, who wants to follow me? And then, you have to, what did he say? Partake of
pick up that cross. Oh, you're talking about that part.
It's after he fed the 5,000 and then Jesus basically said something where it's like, you have to eat my flesh and drink my blood.
You'll that one. Yeah.
And everyone's like, yeah, no, I'm out. Peace.
Yeah. I think your exact words were, that's a hard teaching.
Yeah. That's a hard teaching. They said, I'm out.
Understatement of the century.
And then he had to look at the 12 and say, are you leaving also?
Yep,
I mean,
and then Peter, the most wonderful, I love that phrase, was like, where else are we supposed to go?
And keep your priorities straight as a Christian podcaster. What are you really here for? Are you here for the listens? Are you here for the viewers? Are you here for preaching the word of God?
That's right. Absolutely. All right, guys, if you have not done so, make sure you like, subscribe, and click that bell. And if you are listening to this on a podcast episode, I'm sorry, it's really long, but hey, that's perfectly fine.
Thank you for holding on this long.
Yes, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, make sure you leave us a review. And if you are listening to us on any other podcast platform, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button, whatever it is, because I know it's different on every platform. We love you all, and God bless.
Bye.
Take it easy.
That's right. Enjoy the rest of your night.